All right, we are live. What's up, guys? How's it going? Look, I'm just gonna blame it on Beltane. Y'all some thirsty motherfuckers out there these days. My goodness. The thirst is real, y'all. The thirst is real with y'all. We even saw it on Thursday's video, right? They broke down the sexual modalities, and then people in the Facebook group started talking about the sexual modalities. And then I started thinking about Jessica Chastain, and then it was a whole fucking thing. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. So we're gonna talk about the sexual modalities with an eye towards compatibility. And I've done a couple of these videos before. I've talked about the individual modalities. I haven't done one that's sort of like OP and dating. Like I haven't done one like that, I don't think yet. But it's something that I've always been like weirdly interested in dating plus personality type. I wrote an article for IDR Labs, actually, way back in the day, talking about Myers-Briggs and dating. And I don't think it doesn't hold up in an OP context. I wonder if I could IDR Labs data. Let's see if I can find this. Here we go. Yeah. Basically what I said is like I sort of pointed out the what your main function is, like what your first function is, and what you are repressing, and so how that's going to affect, just your how you behave yourself in relationships, what you bring to the table in relationships, and also going into this idea of like compatibility along the different axes, right? So like if you are on the judging axis, if you're on the same judging axis, you're going to have an easier time getting on the same page. If I'm a TE user and you also have TE somewhere in your stack, then the odds of us, getting together, or having at least some sort of compatibility, some sort of mutual language about that, the odds are pretty good. And same with the perceiving axis, right, or the observing axis. I posted it in the comments in the little chat. I'm going to post it again when this thing goes live. God damn, this thing came out in December of 2014. Man. But you can still see in there, like, there was a lot of stuff that does not line up with OP. But there is quite a bit of stuff that you can sort of see, like the seedlings of OP in there, of just like recognizing if you have this as your first function, you're repressing your last function, and that's going to cause imbalances. And we're not going to totally get into that today, but I do want to use that same mental model to talk about the different sexual energies, because the video that they made that came out Thursday, talking about sort of like the function stack of each of the modalities, is the best way that I can put it. Makes a lot of sense for me. A lot of it tracks for me. A lot of it is like, yep, that fucking makes sense. So like I am MF. So I am masculine sensory and feminine extrovert decider. I am so glad that nowhere in the video did they get too much into like the goofball, the bitch, the macho man, the Bambi deer person, right? They did it a little bit with the looks like game. But there's a couple of things, again, in that video that I do think that there were enough nuggets in that video that are worth discussing. And, again, a big one is just we we cannot fill all of the voids in the world by ourselves. We just cannot. That is not a reasonable thing to expect of any human. And I think that part of, I've been thinking, boy, oh boy, have I been thinking a lot about relationships. And you know what? This video might get on the vloggier side. So I want to tell you that 5 minutes in so that you're not sitting here at like minute 19 being like, when the fuck is he going to talk about real objective personality shit? So I'm telling you that right now. So I've been thinking a lot about relationships, my own relationships with others, what I'm looking for in a partner, all of this and the boop and the bop. And it's been weird for me for a number of reasons. And I could attribute it to about 17 different things. Like I thought that it was sort of like, there is one thing that is preventing me from finding a lasting partner, and it's just that I'm self-sabotaging. So then I would not self-sabotage, and then it'd be like, oh, just kidding, it's this other thing. And I'm like, motherfucker. Okay, so one of the big things that I found for me, sort of like really, really looking back, and I'm going to try to not be, what I'm going to say is going to sound more self-aggrandizing than I want it to. But I think it's an important thing to recognize, especially as we are in the sort of self-help, self-growth, whatever community, this being like a thing. So one of the big things that I felt is that I was growing really, really fast in the last 4 years or so. But look, when I was all in my 20s, I was just a hot mess. So like that explains a lot of it. But then once I stopped being a hot mess, I still had dating problems. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not how this works, because clearly that was what was preventing me from dating, was just not being a hot mess. And so then when that went away, I was like, well, this should fix all the things. Well, no, not quite. But one of the things that I really, really felt and still feel to this day is like, if you're in an intense time of growth, regardless of whether you are growth mindset or not, or whatever fucking bullshit terms, if you're just in a period of like deep, fundamental changing who you are as a person and like getting down to the core of shit, and like finding that place of intense authenticity and connecting with others and like breaking a bunch of toxic patterns. If you're just like, all right, fucking set them up and we'll knock them down like one after another. Like if you're at a time in your life when you're doing that, it's gonna be hard to date, not because, you're gonna outgrow people and there's gonna be nobody to date who's on your level. That's not it at all. But what's gonna happen is that you're gonna be breaking all of these toxic patterns, which means that when you go back out into the world to look for a partner that complements you and that matches you, you're going to be starting from scratch. So I use the example of the frat boy and the sorority girl. I was a frat boy in college. I fucking loved my frat boy days. In a lot of ways, it was one of the most important things that I did in college. Again, tying back to this idea of overall compatibility, because as a straight male with masculine sensory, there's not a lot of my ilk in the line of work that I work in, right? I did musical theater for a long time. I was in the opera department. I did a Spanish major, which again is mostly women and gay men. All of the advanced classes I took were, you know, when it was beyond just like the basic distribution requirements. They were all like the high level psychology classes again. And also they were like fucking psych of gender classes. And I was in college feminists. And again, it was just a lot of women and gay men. And the straight men there tended to have feminine sensory. So finding people who hit my trifecta of straight and male and masculine sensory, it took a little bit of doing. And I'm really grateful that I found my fraternity, because look, I get that fraternities as a whole are kind of a mess. I was very, very fortunate that I got into it at a time when they were starting to address a lot of the really bad hazing problems, and they were really cracking down, which thank God. I was never hazed, which was great. But it was an environment where, you know, even if my fraternity wasn't always like, we were a bunch of nerds. It happened to be a fraternity with a bunch of engineers in it, but just being part of that community, being part of that dynamic, I was finally able to be like, aha, okay, I'm not doing feminine sensory badly. Like, I don't actually suck at sensory. I have it as a demon, but I don't suck at it. But I can't like, I don't have feminine sensory. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That just is not how my body works. It's not what I have. And it isn't a thing I'm like on the fence about. And again, for a long time, I'm going to say this because it applies directly to me, and I am talking about me. Please do not take this out of context. But like, I was not accused, but I was, maybe accused is the right word. Everybody around me was convinced that I was secretly gay. I am not. I have no way to explain this to them, because the immediate rebuttal is the lady doth protest too much. The lady doth protest too much? Doth protest. There it is. The lady doth protest too much. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. This is just what I have. This is what I'm attracted to. And I'm not saying that, like, if you're masculine sensory, then you're attracted to women. And like, that's not what I'm saying at all. I knew plenty of straight men with feminine sensory. There's no correlation there. Or there's no meaningful correlation there. But it was the sort of instance where I needed to understand my masculine sensory. And again, of course, I didn't have the terminology for it back then, but that's what I was feeling. That's what I was doing. And so it's been interesting now to come to this OP side where they're talking about audio, then kinesthetic, then tester, then visual, and seeing sort of like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I have never been a visual person. I hate reading. Like, holy crap, do I hate reading. I will consume a book on tape all day long. I will listen to an interesting podcast. Like, that's fine. I will watch a new TV show with the goal of changing. Like, I'm happy to do all that, but like, the physical act of reading is super, super draining to me. And because I don't have that the part of your brain that reads a description and then like creates a mental image of that. It doesn't do anything. Like, it's not that I can't do it, but it takes so much goddamn effort to do it that I'm like, why am I not just watching one of the thousands of outrageously high quality television that exists? Like, if the goal is storytelling, if the goal is long form storytelling, why am I doing this in a medium that drains me? And for a long time, I thought it was like, well, I'm just stupid and I don't like to read and only smart people read. And then as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, I am really smart. I obviously know how to read, holy shit, but I don't have that. I lack that visual component super strong to be able to like do that for a really long time, right? And it's the same way, you know, I talk to people who they just don't listen to a lot of music. And there's a part of me that's like, schwa, what do you even do if you're not listening to music? But then I think about the other side of that, and I'm like, right, sure. If I'm not a particularly visual person, and then it would make sense that there would be just as many people out there who are not particularly auditory humans and who wouldn't vibe on the audio thing, right? So I'm just going to run through this very, very quickly. If you want to, I strongly recommend joining the class if you want to hear more about this and like sort of the breakdown of the different energy types. But the very short version is double feminine. The order they go in is tester, visual, audio, kinesthetic last, which is the opposite of the, I don't know why pinky is kinesthetic. The double masculine, who has kinesthetic at the top, right? Double masculine has kinesthetic at the bottom. Fucking hell. There it is. Jesus Christ. This one, the audio, right? The audio goes right here. And then the visual goes right here. And then the tester goes right here, right? So you can sort of see with my weird finger hands. God, what is that? Why can't I do the live long and prosper? There it is. Jesus. This is my guitar playing hand too. So like, this is, you can sort of see like the double feminine versus the double masculine, how they oppose each other. And then the MF and the FM do the same thing, right? So I'm MF, masculine sensory, feminine extrovert decider. I'm in sort of the Will Smith. It's weird. You can kind of spot them. We're just like, I think of it as a softer version of the double masculine, right? So if you look at someone like, I'm just going to throw out a bunch of people who we know are MF. So we know that Will Smith is MF. We know that Hassan Minhaj, right? My type twin, he's another MF audio guy. Jason Mraz has been typed as MF. Keegan Michael Key is another MF guy. So like those, right? The people in that, like Paul Rudd is one I think that we strongly suspect is MF. Ken Hart, Terry Crews. So like all of those dudes, I picked dudes just because I think it illustrates the point better. And I just don't know a ton of MF women off the top of my head, if I'm being honest. So like I think Emily Blunt is MF. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are both MF. But anyway, everybody that I've sort of mentioned there, right? There is a little bit of like, I'm going to call it butchness, which I have been sufficiently assured is not that derogatory of a term in the right context. I think this context is appropriate. Like, there's just a little toughness to it. Like, there's like a little butchness. There's a little bit of that, like, earthy, grounded, mulchy, masculine energy in all of them, but they are not in the like Jocko Willink, Michelle Rodriguez, TD Jakes, Henry Rollins. Like they're not in Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, right? They're not that cranked up in the intense kinesthetic, realm, but they still have it in their top three, right? So, and then the FM is the opposite, right? So the MF audios, we go audio, then kinesthetic, then tester, then visual, and then the FM visual at the top, then tester, then kinesthetic with audio at the bottom, right? So in terms of compatibility, I want to look at this through the lens of like filling each other's voids, literally and metaphorically. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to put it. that's the terminology they use, and we're talking about fucking anyway. So like, I'm gonna use that terminology. So if we're talking about filling voids, what we're really looking for is we're looking for somebody who sees the world in a similar enough way that we can get on the same page about some number of things, but differently enough that we can both grow and that we're not going to get, blindsided by just missing an enormous component of the board, right? So referring back to my old article, that's weirdly what that article was kind of trying to get at, is that, there are a million different factors that go into dating and compatibility, and especially just like the institution of marriage is just fundamentally different now than it used to be. It's a whole fucking thing. We are actively rewriting the rules of social courtship as we integrate technology into the dating process. Like, oh my God, right? But we can still think of this, idea of not that I am an incomplete person. We talk about, moving away from this idea of you complete me and that I'm not whole without somebody else. I think that there are some flaws to that line of thinking, but I also think that there's some merit to it. I think it's really, really important that it's not on you to see the whole board. Like, if you're going to be present and be in the moment, necessarily you can't see the whole board, right? And if you're somewhat, if you take a very detached view, well, then now you're not really connecting with people on a grounded, visceral level because you're trying to see the whole board, and trying to, I don't know, understand everything in an abstract way, but you're missing the visceral, in the moment connection with your fellow humans, right? So if that's what you're looking for, right, and that's what partnership is, that's what dating is, it's the like, let's be in the moment together and solve this thing we call it life, and get through the day. That's, you're gonna need someone else to help you triangulate. And I'm going to bring up an anecdote from last night, and I didn't want to make a whole video about this, but this seems to be in the air. And I'm going to make a video on my personal page about this too. I had a really beautiful, interesting experience last night playing Jackbox with a friend. And it was a friend from college, and we've done this a couple of times. Like, this is the second game night she's invited me to, and it was like me and her, and then 4 of her friends who live near her, who were both couples, right? And she and I get along, and obviously we're not dating, but we get along well enough and have a similar enough we have sort of like a body sense of humor. And we do like to try to push the envelope with the answers, and we're both in it to have fun and not take it too seriously, but like try to win and don't just be a goofball. But it was interesting to watch all of these different dynamics play out. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, we are all fully whole people unto ourselves, but we need that other person to see the parts of the board that either we can't or we can't right now. And I think that to me is like a key distinction. I think that at most, you're gonna be seeing, I think the best you're gonna do is like 80%. I think if you can see more than 80% of the board and you're still being present and in the moment and you're not being like super detached, right? So like, the reason that Dave and Shan can theoretically see the whole board is because when it comes to the axis of personality, they are so detached. Like they're obviously very connected to each other, but they're very, very detached, I think, from the general populace. And I think that they would probably agree just because of how many people they have seen. So they can certainly connect in the moment. Absolutely. And as I said before, they're incredibly connected to each other, to their son, and to the people, when they are present with somebody in the moment. If you've ever done a phone call with them, like, holy hell, man, like, talk about undivided attention. Like, talk about really just giving somebody the time of day, carving out time for them. And yes, we're paying for it, but like really making it a meaningful experience, time to spend with each other. They do a really excellent job of that. But when we're talking in the context of personality, we're talking about sort of figuring this shit out. They are like full on bird's eye view, right? There is, you go here, you go here, you go here. Like that's just the scale that they see it at. And I think that if you're trying to take that kind of a scale, which is what I was doing for a lot of it, because I felt this responsibility to see all of the board all of the time, it was preventing me from actually connecting with people. Because viscerally, I was doing what Dave and Shan do in the abstract, but not knowing how to turn that off, right? Because Dave and Shan, they can turn that off. They can be in the moment with you without giving you the sense that they're trying to place you into their larger system, which is like kind of some sociopath shit. So like when you're talking to people, maybe don't give off that vibe, right? But, I'm sort of thinking about this idea of like, well, yes, I am a whole person. Of course. Yes, we are all, Mr. Rogers loves us just the way we are. We are enough. Like all of that rhetoric absolutely applies. But I think that it's important to distinguish between this, I am enough, I am fundamentally worthy, I don't need someone else to fix me, versus, look, man, I can only see 50% of the board at any given time, right? I can walk, right? So like where I am at right now, I'm just going to throw out a number. Just again, because of my glass lizardiness and the environment I grew up in, whatever, I would say that like at any given moment, I feel like I can see roughly 70% of the board. 30% of the board, fucking, and again, this is as far as like stuff that I either know that I know or know that I don't know, right? Of course, on the macrocosmic scale, as you can see, my new moons, right? The moon phases. On that scale of shit, of course, there's stuff that we don't know, like as a human species, right? But like, as far as getting through things, like I feel like I see, if I'm in the moment and dealing with a problem, I feel like I can see 70%, right? There's gonna be 30% I'm always gonna miss. Now I can take the time to walk over 30 more percent to see that and then go back to where I am, right? And stretch myself that way. But like, I cannot see all of the board at any given time, right? It's like, those stupid mobile games where you're the robber trying to evade the security guard, and the security guard has the flashlight and he can only see in a cone in front of him, right? But he can move, like, so yes, he can see the whole board, just not at one time. Like he can't see, his flashlight is only so powerful. So you need other people to be able to see things in the room that you don't. And incidentally, I don't want to go into too many details because this is obviously a public video. There was like a little chippiness, a little conflict, a little confrontation in there. And it was really cool for the two of us, again, because we're similar enough energetically, complementary enough in terms of like the social role that we wanted to fill. Again, there were 6 of us. we were sort of on like the line pushing side of things. Two of the people were an important opposition to us, and they were the more like, no, we are, here to win and get the right answer every time. I don't care if it's funny. That's not the right answer, right? And then the two people in the middle sort of went back and forth really seamlessly to make sure that neither one of us felt ganged up on, right? But there was a little chippiness, not between me and my partner, but between one of the other people and the whole group. And there was some muting that happened. It was whatever. But like, it was really, really cool in that moment because me and my partner texted apart from the group. And I was like, I'm so glad that we're seeing the situation the same way. And she was like, oh my God, yes. Like, no, you're not crazy. This person is continually being out of line. And she appreciated me because this person was kind of going after my partner a little bit and being a little aggressive towards her. And so then me coming in and being like, hang on a second. Yes, I am seeing the board in this person's way. Even though I'm looking at it from a different angle, we're seeing the same thing. And it actually did a lot to like sort of quell the conflict for a while. And I think that when we're talking about these quadrants and we're talking about compatibility in general and functions and whatever and this and that, obviously there is so much that goes into it. But I think that as a shorthand, I think it's important to know what voids are being filled. So like anecdotally, I like the FMs. I don't know what to tell you. Me and Dave, we're both MF INTJs. We are both most attracted in the world to lead, play, TESE FM types. I don't know what to tell you. Pure anecdote that way. Not the same. It's not the same person, obviously. But I think about that. And again, this person, it happens to be a celebrity who I am talking about right now, but she and I actually have met in real life. There is a picture of us, and I wish I knew what I wish I had OP terminology. There's a picture of us where I met this woman after it was a Q&A. She was doing a promo for a movie. And this was back in 2013. So this was right when she was starting to get hot. The movie was for Zero Dark 30. So now you should know who this is. And then afterward, she just like fucking came out into the lobby and was like really nice to everybody. And she was like, because the people running the event were like, you're not going to get any pictures with her. She has she has places she has to be. And she just fucking walked out. She's like, hey guys, how's it going? No security, no nothing. Who wants pictures? And I was like, I want a picture. Are you kidding? Yes, I do. And she comes up to me. I swear to God, yes. All right, we said in the comments it was Jessica Chastain. She comes up to me, and I'm telling you, I have never in my life, had somebody put their hand on my chest in such a way that I was like, okay, whatever this is, this thing. And she just like gently feminine SE put her hand on my like here, and she like did the like engagement pose thing almost. And I was like, okay, this weird. No, I did not get stop. I did not get a boner. I melted. It was like a sweet moment. Okay, very sweet. But I bring it up because I'm like, okay, with where I am in my emotional development, psychic development, wherever, and sort of, I feel like I'm now starting to level off a little bit, and I'm past this period of intense like spike growth. Went out of frame there, right? Intense spike growth, and now I'm starting to level off, and it's being logarithmic again. you know, where I'm at right now, and even back then, it was like, I'm good. Like, I want to fill, oh, Jesus Christ, there's no good way to say this. I want to fill the masculine sensory void, right? That is what I want to bring to the table. And so if you also bring masculine sensory to the table, now we're competing for who gets to fill that void. And that's no bueno. I'm not here for that. And I know for a fact that me dating someone with masculine sensory is just going to end at some point. It's going to become unsustainable. And I think that it's because, right? So if I'm dating someone with masculine sensory, it means they're MF or double masculine. And as much as cool as it is, like, I do like the masculine extrovert decider. But my kinesthetic side is developed enough at this point that not only do I not need somebody else to fill that void, I like filling that void. I like being able to say, no, I can check the audio and kinesthetic box as long as you check both the visual and the tester box. Now we're seeing all the things, right? And, maybe, again, for me, FM versus double feminine, again, to the extent that I even agree with it, but like definitely them having visual and testering the top two, really, really helpful. And even I'm going to go so far as to say that when it's the double feminine, I still don't love their definition of tester, but I think it's the way that what I think they're getting at is this idea of like taking a little, you're not grabbing big handfuls of things, right? It's, I want to take a little bit, like I want a little bit of sensory and I want a lot of nuance in that sensory. And I'm going to test it. And I'm going to let myself be moved by this sensory experience, right? Whereas the double masculine wants to shove on the sensory experience. And that's more like, if you want to think of like creme brulee versus steak, right? So creme brulee, like it crumbles really easily. It's like gooey and squishy and it's like, right? It sort of, it moves and you move, right? Whatever. But the double masculine is like steak, move, shove, smash, right? But they bring up, and I'm going to sort of end on this because this video has gone on longer than I wanted it to. And it sort of ties into this question, what is it about FSE that gives me the butterflies? It's because we're both doing the same thing, but so we're both right in the middle, right? And this is particular about FM. But I love that feminine sensory wants to be moved, but it's also not super hard to move it, right? So what I like about it is that the amount of masculine sensory that I bring to the table is enough to move feminine SE or feminine SI, whatever it is, right? Feminine SI, I find a little harder to move, but feminine SE is like, whooshy, swooshy. So I don't have to work that hard. I get to feel like the big sexy macho man who fills the masculine sensory void. And it just goes swoosh. And then they feel good that they're being moved, but not being bowled over. And I feel good that the amount that I punch is enough to achieve the desired effect. It's really, really nice. But I want to end on this last part. I think that when you look at the polls of like double masculine wants to move everything. It wants to raise everything in its path. And then double feminine never wants to be still. And it always wants to be like swirling around the room. Again, to use their terminology. FM and MF, they are right in the middle. And they're just like solid. One thing that I have always prided myself on is my ability to be unflappable. And I think that is something that I have seen a lot of FMs be really proud of too, but we're being unflappable in very different ways, right? So my unflappability is when a tribe member comes at me with some aggro, I can just like Aikido it out of the way, right? I can take all of the, like, I'm grounded in my masculine sensory, and I'm movable enough with the tribe that like it doesn't affect me. Like I never get hit. Anything can come at me. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm planted. I'm strong. FM is doing the same thing, but just in reverse. So they're swooshing all around the room with the sensory, but whenever they come up against a conflict, that's where they are unflappable. And you cannot, my God, if you have ever gotten into a fight with somebody with masculine TE, it is very much you better be 1,000% sure you are right and also willing to die on this hill, or you're just gonna lose, right? But where the double masculine is gonna be punching everybody and raising everything, right? Feminine sensory is like, no, I don't need to fight everything, right? I'm picking my battles and I'm fighting the human battles. And all the sensory stuff, whatever, that can whoosh and swoosh, and I can flap around that, like that'll move around me and it's fine. I'm not trying to destroy it, right? So it's the same idea when if you put 4 people at a dinner party, you'll have the double masculine, pounding on the table, right? Or making really big body jokes, and then the double feminine archetype, we're talking archetypes here, is like all over them. They're like, oh my God, everything. And they're swooshing around and doing the things. And then you have, I remember this in my office. So my favorite office friend, maybe my favorite coworker of all time. She is hardcore FM. Hardcore. And I adore her so goddamn much. And so but what would happen is there would be the double masculine blowhard in the office, the double feminine, like crumbly whatever person in the office, like butterflying around the room, right? And then me and her in our own ways, like we would just look at each other and be like, these dumb motherfuckers. And we were planted, and we were still, because we had that balance and we weren't doubling up on the double masculine or the double feminine. All right. That was a really rambly, not very to the point kind of video, but I wanted to just throw out a bunch of examples to illustrate how complex all of this stuff is, but more importantly, that if you're intentional about what you're looking for and you're like, no, you know what? I know me, and I know that somebody who has masculine sensory, it's not going to work out, because we're eventually going to have that fight and it's not going to be sustainable. And I'm not here for it, right? And again, it might, like, I anecdotally love people in my quadrant, right? The TE, FI, SE, NI, holy shit, man, we get along great. I know other people who are like, I like people who are on the same, observing axis, but different deciders. Again, humans, it's messy. We're all weird. But I do think that it's important to understand in any relationship, what do you want to bring to the table, right? Like in your heart of heart, leaving aside all of the bullshit mishigas of toxic patterns and whatever, like what do you want to bring to the table? And like understanding the consequences of that, because now you could actually look for somebody who complements that without trying to fight for space. And you have the bonus of, between the two of you, you have a really good and important partnership where you really can see the whole board together without a lot of effort. Like you're both seeing 30% of the board that the other isn't seeing, but there's that middle 40 that that you're always going to be on the same page about and can build on. That sounds pretty fruitful to me, man. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for listening to my vlog about sexual energy. Happy Beltane. Let's do the thing.